All right, we're live. Welcome to another episode of the 10 Horse Money YouTube channel, Tuesday Night Live. We got a good stream again tonight. This NPFL thing is getting cool. I like it. We got Will Harkins, who finished first in the tournament, and then we're gonna have Brock Bila on. Actually, Will and Brock are gonna be on at the same time. It'd be kind of cool just to listen to them break down the tournament and how they attacked it and that kind of stuff. And then we got Al on the other side here. First off, I just want to say thanks, Al, for letting us talk and get to know some of the NPFL anglers, getting to know you, and you sending them our way, and it's great. It's great to interview these guys, and I'm looking forward to doing it for the rest of the year and for years to come, hopefully. So thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate you sending them our way.
Absolutely. I mean, look, $10,000 an episode goes a long way, so it was an easy choice to make sure that they come on there. Don't tell them about splitting the money with. No, listen, on behalf of Brad and Michelle Fuller, Mike and Kathy Como, and Paul Benson and myself, to have guys like you out there with podcasts, we can get the marketing and the branding out there for the NPFL. It's amazing that there's still people out there that don't know about us. So to actually have you guys give us an opportunity and a platform to go out there and talk about our anglers, our league, and all that stuff is great. So we appreciate it.
Yeah, great tournament for the first tournament of the 2024 season. Happened a couple weeks ago, and like we were talking backstage, I watched the whole thing and I thought it went really, really well. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, great event down there, City of Oxford. They came out in force. For a lot of people that don't know, they just did a renovation, or a new build, I should say, at Lincoln's Landing, where we launched out of on all three competition days. And if people are familiar with Green Pound at Hartwell or Wolf Creek at Grand Lake in Oklahoma, the facility that Lincoln County and Lincoln's Landing has put together, if you get the opportunity to go down there and you want to do some spot bass fishing, some green fishing, this ramp, the facility there, the pavilions, is absolutely unbelievable. They hit it out of the park there. They actually have cabins and other places to stay on that property. So I would probably, in the crystal ball, they're going to have a lot of big time tournaments out there because there is plenty of parking, plenty of ramps, and plenty of docks out there. So they hit it out of the park. So kudos to them.
That's cool. It's kind of like that build it and they will come
100%
mentality.
100%.
Yeah, that's a common problem throughout the country. I haven't fished anything as big as the NPFL, but I fished some of the smaller circuits and stuff. And you always have, not always, but a lot of times the places that you fish are just not set up to host, even a medium-sized tournament. The parking lot can be a catastrophe. The live well checks, just there's a lot of little things that aren't set up properly. So it's nice to have a town that wants to encourage bigger circuits to come to their area, and they're actually doing what they need to do to set up the facilities properly. So that's kudos to them. That's good to hear. I didn't know that.
Yeah, the nice thing about it down there is where the launch is and the ramps and everything at Lincoln's Landing, 25 minutes away, the City of Oxford, supporting professional bass fishing or anything high school, college. They came out for their first big event and they did not cut any corners. The red carpet was out for us at the NPFL, for our anglers, for our friends, families, and our fans. So, like I said, from the mayor all the way down to the chief of police, to the park and recs people, to the local businesses, for hosting their first major event. There's going to be a lot more for other trails to go to there, just simply because of what they did as far as the behind the scene logistics went.
Yeah, good stuff, man. Good stuff. And it was a solid tournament. There was a lot of it wasn't a blowout, just like we just came away from the Super Bowl. And when I watch a Super Bowl or I watch a World Series or a Stanley Cup, whatever it is, I want it to be close. I want it to be tight up until, the last quarter or the last inning or something. And that's certainly what happened in this tournament. And I thought it was nice. You got to see, we'll talk to Will and Brock about all this in a little bit, but you got to see several different techniques working. It wasn't dominated by just one thing. There was a lot of stuff going on, and that happens this time of year. There was a curveball. hot, muddy water, you had a fog delay, you had a lot of different variables, a lot of different conditions. And it's good to see the anglers having to adapt to those conditions and think on the fly. So I thought it was a really good tournament, honestly.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, we got down there 2 weeks prior to that tournament. It was about 14 degrees in the morning, about 38 at weigh-in with the Alabama Bass Trail. And 2 weeks later, you get 38 at launch, 35 at launch, and 60 degrees at weigh-in. Lake was still blown out. It was very, very dirty, but it set up perfectly for, all the hubbub over the last 6 months, 7 months you heard during the off season where you got a lot of keyboard warriors with the forward facing sonar. Hey, it's a tool, learn it. It's here to stay, et cetera, et cetera. The electronics don't catch the fish, but it's just an added tool kind of in the box for these anglers. But what took place at Logan Martin is, look, you had some dock fishing. You had some point fishing there, a little bit offshore. I believe on the second day, Buddy Gross went out and did a little bit of forward facing and looking and stuff. The water started to clear up there. But all in all, overall, that tournament was completely old school. Hey, this spot kind of looks good. The John Cox, Florida Pro. Hey, I think there's a fish living there. Let's pitch over there and see if it bites.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of the feel I had too, and that was good. That was kind of refreshing.
Gets old watching the FFS tournaments.
Yeah, it does a little bit, but I've thought about that quite a bit, and watching the NPFL tournament, you got to see some traditional fishing, you got to see some jig fishing, some cranking, that kind of stuff, and you're still looking at the back of the angler for the most part. It is different. It's getting better because that technology is not going away. It's integrated and it's part of tournament fishing.
I think those
forever.
guys that use that forward facing sonar though are learning now to speak to what they're doing.
Right.
But when they skip that jig up underneath the dot, it's visual. We can see that as from this side of the screen, right? The challenge, and I know you guys are doing a great job with it, but is communicating what they're seeing on that screen to the viewer. Right?
Well, they showed some of the screen,
right.
And I think that's what's got to happen. That's really, really cool because we both have LiveScope. I mean, I use LiveScope all the time. I'm 100% pro LiveScope. I think it's a new technique. I think it's a tool, and if you're fishing tournaments and you're not using it, you're just not using the tools that are out there for your advantage. It just helps find fish a lot quicker. So I'm 100% for it. I understand both sides of it, but I'm still pro scoper. But it is nice to see the actual bait and the fish come up, and as the anglers talking about what they're doing, there's the visual of what's going on, because it's cool for somebody that has it to watch it, because I know exactly what's going on. I mean, I've seen that image 1,000 times, but for somebody that doesn't have that technology, it's cool for them to actually watch it take place and to understand it a little more. And it just gets them in the moment a little bit better.
Yeah. So our production company, Fix TV, the crew up there in Appleton, Wisconsin, they broke the code last year. We debuted it to the fishing world and the fans at Eufaula, and we had Mike Corbishley was one of our anglers up there who's big with Lowrance, understands the ins and outs of electronics. We had it on his boat one day and a few other anglers. Then also having the expertise of Luke Duncan and Fat Cat inside the studio, breaking down what you're seeing in that picture-in-picture. But it goes back to your point, having the angler out there that is knowledgeable like Mike Corbishley, and there's a lot of them out there, don't get me wrong. But Mike was kind of the one that was putting it out there to the fans when we debuted that picture-in-picture with Fix TV, and Luke was able to comment around what Mike was talking about. And that helps, especially, look, when you talk to Will tonight and you talk to Brock tonight, these kids are all about the gaming. They understand the electronics. When you get up into that old school like we all are, it's a little bit hard for these guys. I don't want to mess with all this kind of stuff. But to actually see that tutorial on the water with Mike and then in the studio with Luke and Fat Cat, it makes the viewer get a little bit more interested. Like I said, it doesn't catch the fish, but it helps you to break down a lake a lot quicker when they only got 3 days of practice, and then they can find out where these points are, these brush piles are, et cetera, et cetera. So having that play-by-play in there is definitely key to watching what's going on that screen.
Yeah, because it's just like anything in life. When something is new, we're a polarized nation right now. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Almost anything is going to have a side to it. There's going to be pro, there's going to be con, there's going to be this and that on just about any topic that you pick. And this is cutting edge stuff. Although it's been around for a while, it's still cutting edge stuff. And there's a lot of people that don't have it because it's a little bit pricey. It's not like something you can ask for Santa to bring you under the Christmas tree unless you got a really good wife. But most of us, we're not going to wake up and see that under the tree in the morning. It's a little bit pricey. So there's a lot of people that don't have it. And when you don't,
you got to sneak that one under the tree.
You got to sneak that under the tree. Yeah. But when, just like anything else, when somebody doesn't have it, they listen to the buzz and they make their opinion off of the buzz, and that can go sideways. So it's cool to actually integrate that technology into a live stream and have the anglers talk about it and see it real time.
It's like the Red Ryder BB gun. You got to put it behind the couch, or you got to sneak it in there. A little bit more expensive, but like we talked about, look, you could have your opinion about it. It's here to stay. These electronic companies have done a lot of R&D to develop these. You got 3 major companies out there that are doing it. What is next? The bigger screen? Does this screen turn into a TV set to where it almost looks like it's live? Who knows what's coming? But technology today, what took 10 years ago is now a year off. So we'll see what happens.
Have you guys had that discussion with the NPFL about the advancement of the electronics? Because I know Bass has been talking about it. They're monitoring this year just to kind of see how things play out. Is that something you guys have, tossed around?
We're all for it. I mean, we look, if it's like anything, like you said, change is difficult, but you look at what these electronic companies have done for fishing, as far as bringing this out as another tool. We always used to have the debate about A-rigs. Now, of course, we don't allow it at the NPFL level, but on some of the smaller trails and all that stuff, you got 50% of the field that says no A-rig, 50% no A-rig. $23, pretty much everybody can afford. So when you talk about that A-rig and that tool that they can utilize, like I said, it goes back to the electronics. It'll help you locate brush piles. It'll help you locate these fish and all that stuff, but it's still up to the angler. You could throw 7 or 8 baits at them, and if you don't activate them and they don't bite so much that you can see them, it doesn't make a difference. You still have to go out there and perform, and it can be a different cadence as far as reeling in the line, jerking it, whatever it might be. So it just, like I said, it's kind of like a seeing eye dog, and the angler has to go out there and he's got to capitalize on it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I always look at when there's a technology or a technique and everybody has it, there's still certain people that excel with it. So it's not as easy as just putting it on your boat and you go out and boom, you catch fish. It's anybody that has that and has used it, they know that that's so far from the truth. It's not even funny. There's no guarantee. It's like anything else in life. The more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. And that's the bottom line with the forward-facing sonar technology.
Just the learning curve just seems like it's shorter with the forward-facing sonar.
Oh, it is.
Because you can spend so many hours behind it. To skip a jig effectively underneath the dock, it takes thousands of hours to master that because conditions are always changing. LiveScope is just so. It's not that it's short, but you can do so much in 8 hours on LiveScope and never pick up a rod. You can skip for 8 hours, and you're going to be a better skipper at the end of the day, but you're not going to be a Dion Hibden or a Denny Brower skipping that jig under the dock after 30 or 40 years of experience.
In Camdenton, he does tutorials on electronics. Look, there's individuals out there that have broken it down. They can make it as easy as 1, 2, 3. This is all you need on the electronics. Or if you want to get detailed, he'll give you a seminar. It could take an hour, it could take 3 hours. But if you want to put in the time, there's actually people out there that will simply do that. One of our guys on our trail, that's one of our sponsors, Trent Palmer, down in Georgia, he owns Sonar Pros. You call up Sonar Pros, talk to Trent, talk to his staff. He'll tune you up, tell you what you need to do. You can go down there and visit him in Cumming, Georgia, and he will get you right on that. He'll take you out on the water. He'll tell you what you're looking for. These are the settings you want on the different electronics. So if you really want to put in the time with it, there are people out there at all different lakes that will teach you how to properly use those electronics.
Yeah. Let's transition over to
Yes.
let's talk about this championship that's coming up. Lake Amistad. I saw the trophy in the background, so you're thinking about that pretty heavy right now.
We'll give you a little sneak peek there. There you go, folks.
That's nice.
Beautiful silver shield. That will be going out to one of our 25 anglers that are going to be fishing at the championship in Del Rio at Lake Amistad. And we're excited. It's a beautiful area of the country, Rio Grande, Lake Amistad. For those viewers out there, probably about 10% bigger than Lake of the Ozarks. So you're looking at 4,000 acres compared to 65,000 surface acres at Lake Amistad right there on the border. A little bit down right now. We've got some contingency plans, but everything's going to go out of Diablo East as far as the launch goes and the weigh-in. The staff down there, Casey and the whole crew, they are fired up to have us down there to host our first championship here at the NPFL. And we couldn't be more happy. We'll have 3 days of practice, and then we've got a banquet for the anglers and their wives or girlfriends. And then Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, it's game on. One of 25 is going to win $100 grand, and everybody's going to get paid.
Jeez.
Heck yeah.
That's hard work. Hard work. 2023 gets you in there, and you look at guys. I was looking at it. Those guys that are Stu Martell and Craig Saylor and Ryan Satterfield that snuck in there at 25, 24, and 23 positions to fish, no entry fee for $100 grand, 1 in 25 chance, and everybody's going to get paid. They're excited about it, along with, the Goad father who won AOY on the progressive side, Todd Goad. And then I'm not going to mention 26, 27, or 28, but I know it's a tough pill for them to swallow.
Yeah, man. I know. We've all been there.
Somebody's got to be the first man out, right?
Absolutely. Hey, look at Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, almost won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's right. Well said.
You are correct on that one.
So how have you heard much about the lake? You said it's a little bit low, or is
it's last time I checked on the report, it's about 20% low. I think full pool for them is about 1117. And right now it's at 1061, but those numbers are always changing. Look, we all know what's been going on out west as far as a drought, but there's been a lot of weather that's going in. But we're really what feeds that. You hate to say it, but usually those hurricanes push that Gulf moisture up there, and that kind of fills up, and you get that pool to come up higher. But like I said, we're working through contingency plans with Brad and our tournament director, Sean Mulhall. So, we'll have everything that'll go off. It'll be a great event. We've got the town, Del Rio, that is behind us 100%. They can't wait for us to be down there. It's going to showcase that lake. It's been a long time since a professional circuit has been down there. And we couldn't be more ecstatic to kind of debut it, kind of like we did Wright Patman with those folks.
It's kind of like a resurgence of that area. I mean,
absolutely.
Like you said, we haven't seen a major professional event in how long? I mean, I can't even think back.
I don't even know how long it's been, but it's been a long time. And Del Rio and Lake Amistad, we're going to put them back on the map.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. So in that tournament, will it be the same format as far as practice? Everything similar as a normal tournament?
Yep, 3 days of practice. We'll have an off day. The off day, we'll do our community outreach as we usually do. We'll send our anglers out to various community service projects. And then that evening, we'll have a dinner, a little gala, if you want to call it, fancy. And then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, it's game on. Let's go fishing. It'll be a 25-man kumite.
I like it, man. I like it.
Are we going to make them dress up suit and tie for the formal dinner?
We've said business casual, so they can come how they want. But
shorts and a tie.
This is a night to kind of decompress, have a couple cocktails, have a good dinner, mingle amongst your competitors, maybe get introduced to some other wives or girlfriends, and just something low key, something to reward these anglers for all the hard work that they put in the 2023 season. and reward them for, being a part of the NPFL family.
So streaming, is that you're going to stream that all 3 days, or what's the streaming format on that?
So yeah, the streaming will take place. It'll be just like any other normal tournament, with the cameras on days 2 and 3 will be the 8 cameras. And then on Thursday will be the 3 static cameras with Fixed Productions doing everything with the multi-view. And then, of course, the weigh-in will be the same from start to finish. We're still working on some times, but we're going to put all that information out, number one, on our website and then on social media as far as time breakdowns for launch and for weigh-in to begin and our live stream with Fixed TV.
Yeah, that's great.
Just follow us on NPFL.com or on our social media for all details pertaining to the championship at Lake Amistad. It'll be right.
I got my fix the last couple of weeks with the live fishing.
No pun intended.
There's there's so much. There's like this dead period, through the winter and stuff, and then all of a sudden when it's going, I'm all up in it, and I love it. I'm ready for the next tournament. I can't wait.
You're busy now. I mean, everybody's on. It's time to go. That 2 months between December and January, that lull there, kind of prep and all that stuff and get ready for the following season. But yeah, I mean, it's nonstop now.
Yeah, sweet. Well, I'm going to bring Will and Brock in here in just a little bit, but you had a little giveaway that you posted on Facebook.
Yes. So I started a new Facebook page pertaining to my MC career, so to speak. So it's Big Al. There's the boom. You can follow me there and ask all the folks out there who you pulling for and what do you got in the snack bowl. I got about 25 comments, so I'm going old school right here. We'll put them in a beautiful Fixed TV hat. We'll shake them up. This individual here, I will contact you through Facebook, and you will get the prize pack. And that is Joe Drowns. Joe Drowns. So I will be getting in touch with Joe, and Joe will receive a prize from the NPFL. So we appreciate everybody that commented.
Fantastic.
Sweet. Congratulations.
Absolutely.
I'm writing that down.
Joe Drowns. I'll go contact him right after I get off the air. Now, for all the folks that are watching, the show is going to get a lot better with Will Harkins and Triple B Baitworks Brock Bila.
I like that. Triple B.
As Luke coined him. I'll tell you what, Luke Duncan, if you need a nickname, just go to Luke Duncan and hang out with him for 30 minutes. He'll give you a nickname.
He's full of it, man. I mean, he's just nonstop.
Literally, he's full of it.
Yeah. All right. We're going to bring these other guys in. Al, man, thanks for hanging out. We'll be in touch and appreciate everything you do, buddy.
One last thing, guys. Championship Tuesday that week. Get in touch with me. Let's promote the championship on this show. I'll get you a few anglers.
Okay.
All right.
That's good.
Sounds like a deal. All right. Talk to you later. All right. Cool, man. That's awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of new faces on here. If you're not following the NPFL, please go check it out. Go to their Facebook page. Go like Big Al's Facebook page. Just show them some love. That's something that, and the same with Will and Brock that are getting ready to come on. Something I used to do this a lot in the live streams, and I've kind of gotten away from it. But show some love to these people that come on and spend the evening, spend their time. Everybody's busy, man. Everybody's going 100 miles an hour, and for people to set aside an hour and a half or 2 hours of their evening or 20 minutes or whatever it is to come on here and hang out with us and share the story, share the information, the knowledge and stuff with us. The least we can do is just go to their pages and just say, hey, man, I appreciate that. And same with the companies, Baitworks, Virtus, Cumberland Pro Lures, the companies that you see on my videos. Go check them out. We've got a choice to go anywhere we want, but let's try to do our best to support the companies that support the people that you follow and the sport that we all love. I just had an option to buy a vehicle for my wife not too long ago. I didn't buy it, but we went vehicle shopping, and we went with Toyota. We got a Toyota Highlander because Toyota does a lot in the fishing industry. I mean, you see Toyotas, they're sponsoring a lot of the sport that we love. So we have choices out there. Virtus Jewel is an American-made product. There's not a lot of rod and reels. There's not a lot of rods out there that are made in America anymore. And Virtus is one of them. They're made down in Midway, Arkansas. Jonathan and I had the opportunity to go down there and check out the rod plant down there, and it's just guys and gals just working, just blue collar folks doing it upright. And that's the kind of companies that we need to support. Cumberland Pro Lures is the same way. Isaac's down there in Georgia, and he's doing it he's building jigs one at a time. So support all the companies that support us, and let's bring Will and let's bring Brock in and expand on this conversation. What's up, Will?
What's up, guys?
Not much. I'm gonna bring Brock in here too. Evening, Brock.
Hello.
Hello.
So, yeah, thanks for jumping on here. It's good to see you guys. There might be a little bit of delay, but we'll figure it out, and it might it might just be fine. So we'll just play it by ear. But it's cool to have Big Al on here, man. I like that. The last couple times we've had these NPFL shows, had Al kind of come in and break the ice and talk about everything. I could see you guys chomping at the bit when we were talking about the forward facing sonar stuff, because that's like everybody likes to talk about the forward facing sonar. That's all. Brock, you got another unit on your boat, didn't you?
Oh yeah, just put one on for that matter. Because I texted Brad and Paul and I was like, hey, I'm scoping them. I know everybody else is fishing shallow. Like, I don't know if we can do this. And they're like, no, the 126 SV doesn't have an HDMI port, so we can't put it on live. I was like, dang it. So I made sure when I got back, I traded it in at Marine Repair Center, got one that 80, I don't even know what it is, but one of the graphs with HDMI ports so that they can stream it if I ever make it back to live again.
That's cool. I was wondering how that's been happening. So it's just an HDMI port in the back of the graph?
Well, I know PHYX TV has a whole system that enables them to do it. But that's just the simple version of it. I know they have a whole, I don't even know what it is, but it's a whole system that enables them to put it on live. But
yeah, I would say for us simpletons that only know how to operate our graphs and our phones, you just plug something in the back of the HDMI and
you leave it to the production company.
Yeah, exactly.
You just, what do I need to buy?
Leave the fishing up to you guys and the production up to them.
Yeah. I agree. I can run a GoPro and I can upload videos and do some editing and stuff like that.
Them, it was an 8612.
8612.
Champion Boats community. That's what it was.
Cool. Gotcha. Well, first off, congratulations to both of you, Will for the win and Brock for right behind him. Like I was talking to Al, you guys probably don't know, but I'm a letter carrier for the Postal Service. So I'm out on the street a lot of times, and most of my route is actual driving route. So I'm in my vehicle almost all day long, literally like 6 or 7 hours a day. So I listen to like a ton of podcasts. Anytime there's live fishing, I'm not actually watching. Well, I might watch it a little bit, but I'm listening to it the whole time. So I got to watch the whole dang show. It was awesome. Like all 3 days.
Get to listen to the whole thing.
Yeah, I got to listen to the whole show, and it was cool to follow you guys through it.
Postal workers gone wild.
Yeah, a lot of drama on the last day, man. It was intense. I kind of wanted, let's just kind of do a little outline of this whole night, what I'm kind of looking for, and I kind of wanted to talk about the practice. We spoke a little bit about it, Brock, but the tournament hadn't happened yet, so we didn't want to dive into it too much. But you guys had 3 days of practice. Like, Will, how did you attack practice? What was your mindset going into the tournament, and what did you find?
Yeah, for sure. So going into the tournament, I spent a day and a half of pre-practice there. First time I've ever seen the lake, and it was an offshore catch fest. It was awesome. 50, 60 fish a day was nothing out there scoping. So I went into the tournament. I was going to do that. That was my deal. I had, 8 spinning rods on the deck. I was going to go fish offshore. We got there, I woke up, and the water clarity was 6 inches of visibility. When I had went in pre-practice, it was, 5, 6 feet of visibility. So massive change there. So the first 2 days of practice, I tried to force the offshore stuff. Just never could get it going. I caught, I think, 3 bass in 2 days and about 35 catfish. So that kind of was disappointing. So the third day of practice, I woke up, kind of figured out a little current deal first thing on the main lake. So after about 10 o'clock that practice day, I put all the rods up and just drove the entire lake, tip to tail, going inside every creek, every pocket, just marking everything that looked good visually. It was all visual. There was no graphing to it for me anyways. And so day of the tournament, everything I was fishing was pretty much new water. I never fished. It just had looked good and it set up the same as some of that stuff I had caught fish on that morning. So it's just kind of the secondary bluffs. It wasn't really main lake rock stuff. And I was really just doing that to survive, to have something to fish. So each day was a learning process of the timing of it, the fish, how they set up, everything. So definitely a lot different than I would have anticipated going into the event. So
obviously very, very large lake and not well known. You were there for a whopping 4 days when you figured that out. So talk a little bit about, you weren't able to, you weren't using your graphs to graph or to side scan a lot of these areas. Were you looking at maps for trends? How did you find those specific areas and creeks that visually looked good? Were they looking good on a map because they looked the same as the 40 other spots that you had, or was it just literally pulling in and looking at it and going, yep, that's good, and moving on?
Yeah, no, it was pretty much all eyesight. You know, I just wanted to visualize the bank. Some of it was a contour change. It was more like a transition bank is basically what they were.
Okay.
Where they were going from real shallow to real deep. And didn't have to be real deep, but it had to have some depth there for them to kind of pull out on, I feel like. But it had to have that good rock transition mix to it. You know, it couldn't just be straight bluff. A lot of guys were cranking straight bluff and catching a lot of little fish. Those bigger fish had not, they had moved farther along than that. So it wasn't the main lake stuff, but it wasn't the real shallow stuff either. So it was almost like I said, those secondary little bluffs, secondary little transition banks leading into some of these spawning coves.
Did you have the day, like the night before the day one of the tournament, did you have a starting spot picked out in your head, or is it something that once you got on the water, you figured it out?
No, I literally ran down the lake. You know, when I launched that first morning, I still had no idea where I was going to go. Yeah, I just went down, stopped at whatever looked good. And just like I said, I hit probably 50 spots that day and then kind of took those top 10 in my mind and kind of rotated them more and more. So a lot of times you wouldn't really catch fish until like the second or third or fourth rotation on a place. So they weren't real long stretches. You know, they were all like 5-minute stops. So the better looking stuff I'd rotate again because it was all current and timing related.
Yeah, that's cool. It's nice to be able to fish free like that. You know,
Yes.
Just go out and whatever looks good, you just hammer it. That's something you can kind of do. You can do that a little more, I think, this time of the year.
For sure.
If the water would have been clear, like you had left it in pre-practice, it would have been a totally different tournament for you. You would have probably, had certain spots where there were high concentrations of fish, and you would have spent a lot of time just roaming those little areas, picking them off one at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Brock was the exception to that, but you see a lot of your better scopers in that tournament, the Walters, the Trent Palmas, the Corbishleys, that didn't really play a whole lot. Like I said, you had a couple guys who did that, but it was just an old-fashioned bank beatdown for a lot of guys.
Yeah. Brock, what about you? How did your practice go, and what did you find?
It was kind of the same thing as Will was saying. And I went there for 2.5, 3-ish days for pre-practice, and it was just like amazing. Just fish, 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 fish. And I was like, okay, here we go. I can do this. And I was watching the ABT and saw that the watercolor was changing, cold weather, the whole thing. I was like, oh boy, it's going to be a shallow ball game. We're going to be cranking, dragging a jig, doing stuff like that. And I remember first day of practice with the my camera guy, I pulled up to a stretch that there was a bunch of suspended fish off of and a bunch of bait. And I flipped a Mickey rig out there and caught like a 3.5 pound spot. And I was like, it works. I had to switch colors to more of a white, hard white instead of a really natural Damiki rig. And, all of practice, I in my head, I like to break down the lake in regions. And we had like the True River section with a major current. I think they were running 3 generators, if that's correct, Will. I don't remember exactly, but I think they were running 3 generators basically constant. And then you have the river section, then you have the mid lake section, which I feel like a lot of the guys caught them at, which when I went there in practice, there was just a ton of boats and it just wasn't happening for me. I was trying to crank them up, and I only spent 4 to 5 hours doing that. And then on the lower end in Rabbit Creek and Clear Creek and the very, very backs, that was the cleanest water on the entire lake, which happened to be where I was fishing in pre-practice. And there was bait back there. And I was like, the biggest thing that I look for in practice is trying to find the most active region of the lake and then breaking it down. So that's what I did. And in my head, I was like, oh man, clearest water, there's bait, there's active fish. I'm going to break this area down, these 2 areas, and go to work. And I thought there was going to be, 20, 30, 40 boats in each area. And come tournament day, there wasn't.
So when you're watching from your home, the conditions change. I mean, going down there, whacking them, your confidence is through the roof. It's when you get bites, you get feedback. Obviously, you get confidence, and having a technique dialed in, a technique that you guys are both very confident in, just makes it even better. But you're seeing these conditions change. What's going through your head while you're like, your 5 foot of visibility Damiki rig bite is slowly waning, and then you see the ABT, and you see that a lot of those people probably didn't catch them the way you guys thought you might catch them. What's going through your head when you're seeing all that?
Yeah,
that's a general question, but it's like, obviously your stomach's probably twisting up. You're like, dang it.
The good news when I was sitting here watching ABT and, taking in all this information was knowing it kind of goes back to the LiveScope talk of you can drop your LiveScope in those same areas and you spend an hour or 2, moseying around up in there. You'll figure out real quick whether they're there, if they're biting, if the water clarity messed them up, and then you can go, find new stuff. But the main hope was I knew the rain was further, it happened in enough time that I knew it would enable it to let clean water come in. And one bite that I'm surprised that never happened was any running water, running the backs of creeks, throwing a blade, crankbait, throwing stuff like that, which there just wasn't enough water, and it was late enough that never happened. But that was, being able to sitting at this desk right now, I was like, okay, I'm just going to go put my LiveScope down, look around, see what's going on, make a decision, and then move on.
Gotcha. What about you, Will?
Yeah, kind of the same boat. So I'm all for the LiveScope. That's my deal. I love to do it. I hate fishing the bank. But after seeing, the ABT guys kind of gave me more hope than I was thinking, because you saw some of those guys catching them on jerk bait, Damiki stuff. So I was like, this is still going to happen. And that just wasn't the case for me that week. I spent a lot of time in Clear Creek, a lot of time in Rabbit Creek. And I mean, the amount of bait that you saw in there was unreal. But it was so hard. Like, for me anyways, the fish were so spread out. Like, there was not those groups that I was hoping for. So you go, you catch a single, then you go an hour after catching 5 catfish and catch another single. So it just wasn't clicking as fast as I'd hoped. So what I ended up doing, I just pulled out of those areas, fished the same creeks, just in that little bit dirtier water. I didn't want that real muddy water. But like I said, at that point I was scrapping to just find fish. And so just coupled with some good decisions and some luck, kind of figured out, especially with the warmer weather and the sun, I mean, that just screams fish moving up shallow, to me. So kind of made that deal happen. So it was all just timing, a little bit of luck, but definitely. I'm not gonna say I was disappointed in the way I caught him, but definitely was not expected.
Well, one thing I learned about you, Will, from watching the whole stream was how much you really love a jig and your passion for fishing a jig.
Yeah, no,
I hate a jig. I hate fishing a jig. It was awesome.
Yeah, no, I hate a jig. But my best two finishes, you follow last year. This one, I was throwing a jig. So it's like maybe I should give it a little more love than I do. But yeah, it still feels like you're dragging around a ball of grass. Like it's awful.
Yeah, so it's a love-hate relationship, I guess.
It paid off this past
couple
weeks ago. I mean, that works out well for you.
I think it's growing on him. It's growing on him.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Stephanie has a question. She says, were the fish getting ready to spawn in Alabama, or is it too early?
So, okay, quick explanation, I guess. I think they were going into pre-spawn stage. You saw that last day. A lot of those guys who caught really big bags, they were ultra shallow back there in the backs of some of these shallow pockets, like a Drew Cook. So I definitely think it's on their mind this time of year. It's going to be in any of these southern reservoirs. It's going to be on their mind. No, they are not spawning yet, but most of the time around here, your biggest fish will move up first. So they don't mind a little bit of cold. So they were definitely moving up.
That's a trend, I think, anywhere Midwest and South. Like we see the same thing. Your bigger fish are going to be the first ones to go to the bank, the first ones that you're going to catch offshore come post spawn. It's when there's a lot of fish that are still, I know we're down the road a little bit, but when there's still fish that are up shallow on a bed, that's the time to be out there chucking and whining something big out off of offshore, off of first our primary points. And
they move up shallow. They may not actually be spawning, but I always call it they're looking around, like they're warming their belly up, they're getting their eggs warm, and they're getting, they're just up there rooting around, I guess.
So I talked to Drew Cook that he caught that 20 bag and moved up way up the leaderboards. And one thing that I saw on my end was when I was scoping them at the beginning of the week, they were, I know on live, I was catching them off that secondary and kind of just in the middle chasing bait. But every day, and even that last day of practice, those fish, kind of like what you're saying, just kind of scoping out the area, seeing what's up there. And we had those high sun days that really warmed up the water. And every day, once the sun got up and it warmed up, I noticed that those fish would kind of scoot up towards the bank and they would start sitting on those mud flats. And Drew Cook was saying that he was catching his fish on the furthest dock back on a mud flat as far as he can in like 6 inches of water. But the sun had to be up. And it's that same concept. I think they had spawning on their mind, but they definitely weren't spawning because the water temp was still, 47-ish. So
that can be a Lake of the Ozarks thing too. I fished with Roger Fitzpatrick one time a couple years ago in a BFL, and we had that discussion about some of the back docks and some of those coves. Those fish sneak back there a little bit earlier than most people think about going back there. So yeah, there's a lot to check, man. When you're on a lake, there's just a lot of things can be going on, and you don't want to. That one sneaky little pattern, you want to be the person to find it, because a lot of times it can, first of all, it's typically, if you find it, it's not getting the pressure that the obvious patterns are. And secondly, sometimes those bigger fish can be doing just that little bit of off the wall stuff, and you can come in with a 20-pound sack like you're talking about. Here's another question from Stephanie. She was just wondering about catching offshore fish without forward-facing sonar, and then how did you catch them prior without forward-facing sonar? And that's a topic that it's super popular topic right now, forward-facing sonar, obviously. But there's, like, Stephanie doesn't have that technology, and a lot of people don't have that technology. So prior to forward-facing sonar, how were you locating and catching fish, whether they be offshore or just along the bank?
Brock, you want to take the lead?
Yeah. So this was one thing So when I was in high school, like a sophomore, junior year, I remember getting into a, adult club, and one of the adults saying like, "Hey, it's going to take like 5 years for you to start competing against these guys." And I went to YouTube, started researching. I'm like, how do I shorten that learning curve in order to compete against these guys? And what I ended up doing prior to LiveScope was taking on a shallow offshore game of fishing, because I feel like everybody puts offshore fishing into a category that's like, okay, you're in 30 foot of water. But I applied taking side imaging and fishing in, as long as the structure isn't out of the water. So it could be 2 foot of water, but anywhere from like 2 to 10 foot of water, and using side scan to find rock piles, brush piles, shell beds, underwater points, anything like that. That's how I fished offshore, because I didn't really like fishing the ledges in 20, 25, 30 foot of water. So I'd rather go throw a square bill over a rock bed or something like that. So prior to LiveScope, that's the main way I caught fish, other than fishing the bank.
Yeah, offshore doesn't mean that you got to be sitting in 30. It could be. I've caught plenty of fish in 3 foot of water in the middle of a bay or a cut. You can't cast 3 times and hit the bank.
Well, you look at the Tennessee River, Kentucky Lake, or Pickwick, or Chickamauga, any of those lakes. I mean, you can be way out in the middle of the lake and you're in 3 foot of water. There's a bar out there. That's offshore fishing.
You can step out of the boat and onto the gravel bar and walk across it.
Yeah, not even get your knees wet.
Like, and LiveScope works there. Don't get me wrong, and you can I use it all the time up that shallow. But is it like 100% necessary? Probably not, because you're not going to be able to really throw a Demiki rig over those fish. I mean, you can, and watch them come, like a jerkbait. You can do that, but when they're I feel like when those fish are that shallow, they're moving up there, and they're up there to actively feed. You know what I mean? Yeah. So they're not just sitting, they're not suspended, right? So they're up there to feed, and you catch them a lot easier.
You don't have to convince that fish to bite. That fish is already in predatory mode, where he's going after your bait or after bait up there. If they're going to go low or relax, they're just going to slide off the side of it and then go sit in 12, 15 foot of water. And then that's where that forward facing, at that point, that comes in where you can pick off that fish that isn't hungry, that is
neutral, maybe
in a neutral mood. Yeah.
What about you, Will?
So I guess for me, I kind of grew up fishing the bank. I didn't have the electronics. I didn't have the side imaging, anything like that. So up until really my senior year of high school, I didn't know much of what a graph was. I didn't understand them. I didn't know anything. I had a little tin boat at the time, a little aluminum boat. So I just went and fished. If I wasn't throwing at the bank, I didn't know what offshore was, if that makes sense. So, it was all, I think that's what helped at Logan Martin, kind of getting back to that just visual fishing. What makes this bank different? What makes this dog different? So it was all just learning to fish with your eyes. So that was big. And then like around here, like wintertime, you kind of visually mark, hey, there's a rock ledge coming off this bank. So when the summertime, when the water's over it, you can't see it. I didn't have a graph to tell me it was there, but I knew it was there. So that was kind of the extent of my fishing growing up. And as soon as senior year hit, I hopped on with actually Kobe Thompson in his boat. We fished, and he had the LiveScope and everything. So definitely was a quick learning curve. And so now I catch probably 99% of my fish looking at the screen. I don't fish the bank anymore. But it's good to still know, hey, you can do it. You can go up there and fish visually, go fish shallow, and still catch a few fish too. So you kind of have to know both parts of it, I feel like.
Yeah, and that right there, that's that the nuts and bolts of fishing. That's that stuff that a good fisherman needs to know, all that stuff, because you still got to know where to put that LiveScope in the water. If you just idle out in the middle of the lake and put it down, you might see some stuff. But if you're right now, it's becoming, we're still late winter, but pretty soon the fish are going to be moving. It's early pre-spawn. We're in Missouri, so water temps around here are still kind of low 40s, but the daylight is definitely getting longer, you know, and that's, to me, we've had this conversation, that's almost more important.
Grant has that
the length of the length of the day, I think, is just as important, if not more important, than the actual water temp. So that's why you see these bigger fish slide up a little bit earlier than most people think. But you got to do your homework, and hopefully you have a mentor growing up that teaches you where these transition banks are, where these fish are moving from their winter to their spawning sections. Those are the areas that you need to know about. So when you do put your LiveScope in the water, you're seeing a lot more fish. You know, you can't just go out and dump the trolling motor anywhere. So you gotta, it's not as easy as what some people say. You still have to, you have to know where to look, is I guess. Well, that's a long way of saying you got to know where to look, and it's not just buy the unit, put it on your boat, put it in the water, and catch fish. By the way, Drew Gill, he's a friend of the channel. He's been on here before. Congratulations to him. And he was just on Bass Talk Live the other day, and his perspective on forward facing sonar is really legit. I like the way he talks about it, and you can tell he's spent a lot of hours dissecting things. His formula for breaking down a lake and how he attacks a fish is pretty cool. So, I mean, I would encourage anybody on here to go check that out. It was a really good stream. I think it dropped Monday, but Drew's a really good guy. Congratulations to him. He's going to be, if you don't know the name, he's an Illinois guy, just right up the street from us. If you don't know the name, you're going to know the name soon, because he's good behind that graph.
Hey,
so
you might
go
bring
ahead.
up a topic real quick?
Sure.
So this is to everybody here. So the topic of LiveScope in snagging fish has obviously been a thing that has gotten brought up across the board. And, you know, from my opinion, it is very hard to purposefully snag a bass on LiveScope. Rather, it's like, even in clean water, extremely hard. A little bit dirty water, don't get me wrong, they don't feel the bait around it. But I wanted to ask you guys, Will, and you got, like, what's your guys' opinion on that?
Yeah, no, I think it's.
Go ahead, Will.
Yeah, sorry. Nearly impossible. Yeah, I've never been able to do it. Not that I've tried a whole lot, but you know, I don't think that's a thing. You know, you may be able to snag one, but if you're going out there just to snag 5 fish in a limit, I don't think you could do it.
No.
That's just my take. I know guys have different opinions on that, but just because of the width of the scope, it's not dead on. You know, it's not just one single line. It's got a little bit of a degree there.
Thank goodness it's not one single liner. We'd never find our baits.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So yeah, I don't think that's a worry.
I snagged, the last time I was out, I was throwing the jig minnow over on Lake of Egypt, and there was a few bass and a few crappie mixed in with this big school of gizzard shad, and I was, you know, shaking, reeling it in. I had a little thump, but I think it was just I just hit the shad, and so I set and nothing. My rod didn't bow up, and then I went back to shaking, and then I had a thump again, and I set. Well, and I had one. You know, I was locked up for a little bit. I got it closer to the boat, and it was about a 14-inch gizzard shad, 12 to 14-inch gizzard shad. So automatically, I'm like, I need to be throwing a big, huge glide bait. But I had snagged it in the belly with that little jig minnow, 2-aught hook. I think that's the only time I've ever snagged a fish. And that wasn't even a bass. You know, that was just a rough fish. And I was coming through a school of 200-300 of those fish. So yeah, well, I don't know. I don't think it's that easy to snag them either.
Here's the other question. How many fish do you throw at that don't bite?
A lot.
I mean, I can tell by both of your reaction, a ton, right? Like the snagging is one conversation, but I think everybody that doesn't have it, that has any opinion against it, like, needs to go into the boat and literally watch it happen
and figure out, like, the fish they don't just sit there. Like, they're not just sitting there, and if you run a lure by them, they're either going to run away or they're going to come bite it, one of the two. And even if you're throwing a treble hook bait, like a jerk bait, or you're throwing a fluke with the big hook or a treble hook on the bottom, it's like the fish has to actively feed for the bait. So I know all of you guys have seen a jerk bait fish chasing on LiveScope. They're going all around it, all around it, all around it. You're jerking, and then they'll get it, and then you set the hook and you have them. And that means they've actively made the decision to go chase the bait. Versus if you took a jerk bait and you try to jerk it down to them and try to snag them, they're going to be gone.
I've snagged just as many on a jerk bait without LiveScope.
Exactly.
That I have with LiveScope. Like,
yeah. When you think about ripping a trap out of a grass, you get in a little spawning flat, and you know there's probably a decent concentration, and you're ripping
and you
a
hardly
trap,
ever,
and you don't really catch them. Every once in a while you might.
I mean, it's a treble hook bait. When you have more than two, I mean, you're talking 2-3 treble hook on a bait, spook. I mean, there's tons of baits, but it's interesting to see the guys that don't throw or don't use LiveScope and don't understand how fish react to certain stuff, how they think that we're snagging fish, which I can see that because, to a lot of guys, we're just looking at a fish, throwing a lure, and, oh, we got one. But that fish have to actively make a movement towards the fish to even get hooked. And that's the same thing, like you said, when you're ripping a trap through grass or throwing a spook or anything like that.
I mean, we found that last week. We got, while we didn't have a stream last week, we were down at Bull Shoals. And if you've ever fished Bull Shoals, you know that you're fishing in 60 to 120 foot of water primarily all day long, whether you're 5 feet from the bank or you're
for sure,
out in the middle of the lake, right? You're out there deep. And you talk about the fish movement. Like, you couldn't throw a half-ounce jig-headed minnow down there because they didn't want it that fast. You had to throw an eighth-ounce jig-headed minnow. And now, mind you, an eighth-ounce jig-headed minnow, folks, in 70 foot of water.
Well,
a lot of it was 70 foot of water.
No, a lot of the fish were like in 40 foot, but it takes
forever for that eighth ounce to get down there.
And they're gone. They're like,
by the time it gets to them, they swim away.
Yeah, they're moving around. That's one of the most difficult things about fishing with looking at fish on a graph or forward facing sonar is when they're moving like that. There's so many times where by the time that bait gets halfway down, they're already 50 feet away. They're gone, and you got to reel it up and do it again. Reel it up and do it again. And if you, like you're saying, if you throw a 3/8 ounce Demiki, it just blows right by them and they don't even show interest in it. So
you have to find that like magic in between where you get down to them to catch them, but you don't spook them.
Yeah, it's interesting. Man, I had a really good question. I can't remember what the heck it was. Perspective mode. I know that's somebody was talking about perspective mode and how that's kind of been overlooked or not talked about, I guess, until recently. What's your guys' thoughts on that? Brock, obviously you've made some upgrades to your boat, so you think it's something that you probably need to have, right?
I don't have a lot of experience with it. So Sam Rayburn in last September, there was a punch and bite that one of my team members from Jury got on, and I, both in the same boat, and he's from Wisconsin. And he was like, hey, turn your LiveScope to perspective. You can kind of pick out that, the pieces of grass that stick out. You can look underneath the mat. You can do things like that. And we fished for like 2 or 3 days with that. And I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. Like that's pretty neat. But talking with other anglers, I heard from certain guys on like TVA and, fishing like Texas flats when you're fishing stumps or you're schools of fish up shallow, you can track where those fish are moving. So say you're fishing a shell bed on Pickwick Lake and you're throwing a crankbait over it, you catch a couple, and then all of a sudden you stop catching them. You can kind of track those fish off that shell bed where they're going to go and maybe stay on them a little bit better. But I did fish 2 days on Table Rock last weekend. I fished Saturday and Sunday. And Table Rock, right now, you're fishing deep, so it doesn't play that big of a role. The one thing that was pretty neat when I was fishing was like fishing balls of bait, you can track those balls of bait a lot easier with perspective. especially when they're higher in the water column, obviously. But other than that, I haven't seen a huge difference so far. But I've only used it 2 days, so I don't know. Have you used it, Will, a whole lot or seen it?
So no, I haven't used it a lot. I don't have a ton of experience with it. I like the 360 better. I just feel like overall that kind of, it's not live. You can't track the fish. But as far as I've seen the biggest difference in fishing grass with it. You go to a Guntersville, you go to Okeechobee, you go wherever, you can see those grass lines so much better than just with the forward facing. So that's where I think those two really shine. Outside of that, I think you can get away with just the forward. If, especially around here, your linears, your Hartwells, you really don't use it all that much. So I don't have it on my boat. I don't really plan to. But if we were going to like a Okeechobee or a Guntersville or something where grass would play, I would definitely think about it.
Brock, were you able to see fish under the mat?
No, I didn't know at the time, but I've done a lot of research before getting this perspective mode. But I've seen videos of guys being able to look underneath the mat, and they pulled up their screen on YouTube and they saw the fish on the mat. So that's, I haven't experienced it myself, but I saw it on YouTube.
Yeah, I saw my buddy Brad that he fishes the BFLs and the LBL division on Kentucky Lake. I stayed with him, I think it was last year or the year before, and he lives down at Reelfoot Lake in Tennessee, so he's out there all the time. And anybody that knows anything about Reelfoot Lake, it's a shallow, dirty, stump-filled lake. Average depth is probably 5 foot. But he showed me some cell phone footage from perspective mode, Garmin LiveScope, and you know how you get the captain, and what is it, Captain app or whatever. Anyway, you can record that stuff. You can record your graph on your phone. But he showed me some video of active captains, what it's called.
Yep.
Bluegill beds. And you could see in like 3 foot of water, you could see these stumps, and you could see these bluegill beds, and you could see these bluegill swimming around the beds doing bluegill things. And I was like, whoa, that was I think it was like 2 years ago. And then lo and behold, that was the same time where there were a lot of guys fishing all the way back on those flats on Kentucky Lake and catching those smallmouth, doing the similar thing, fishing stumps and spawning smallmouth in 3 feet of water. And that got me thinking about that. But I haven't, I'm still running the 32, and I'm going to get the 34 eventually. And that's one of the things that's cool about the 34 is you've got that option to go sideways or vertical, just at the click of a button or whatever. With the 32, I gotta buy the actual bracket to do that. It's a little more involved, but we fish a lot of grass lakes around here. I mean, most of the lakes that we fish have grass, and I'm thinking that it's something that would be beneficial for us, just for looking up in that grass. And like you said, Brock, we're having a wider perspective of a section of grass to see how the fish are relating, because they do that. Even on forward mode, I see that all the time. I'll see, it looks like there's nothing there, and then I'll see a fish just kind of poke his head out of the grass, and then he'll just kind of go back in the grass. And you got to be looking, right there to see that happen. Or if you get kind of tight to, you can kind of scan down the grass line. But I think that perspective would maybe give me a better view of what's going on all the way down a big section of grass. I know what I was going to say. We were talking about snagging on forward-facing sonar. The A-rig is probably the most brutal bait for snagging a beaten up fish. It's like the downside of the A-rig is like you catch one, and then by the time you get him in the boat, a lot of times he's hog-tied.
It's like adding insult to injury. You get caught and you get 45 piercings.
I hate that. I mean, I'm all about conservation and fish, but I feel sorry for those fish sometimes. Where they get 3
hooks of them, and they just come in like all curled up.
They're just like uncle. All right. Good. That's a good conversation. Back to the tournament. So day one, Will, let's start with you. Day one, how are things going according to plan? And just talk us through day one, maybe day two, day three, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So the first hour went exactly to plan. I didn't catch a fish, didn't have a bite. That was kind of the plan I wanted going into it. No, so I ran my first probably 10 or 15 spots. Like I said, these are like 5 cast little deals. I didn't have anything. So finally ended up getting down around the dam area, Clear Creek. Caught a pretty quick limit, just like 13 pounds, 14 pounds or whatever. And then went on that midday lull that I hit every day. Went and fished some brush piles. I had 6 or 7 brush piles I'd rotate through as well. So I was just fishing as many of this high percentage stuff as possible. So ended up that evening, found a little stretch kind of behind a current break, natural bend in the river there, channel swing, and a place that it didn't really look good visually, but the contours lined up well. It had that little shallow shelf for them, but it was real close to that deep water. So rolled up there and ended up catching, I think caught like 2 4s and then had lost like 2 4s. So it was a good little stretch. Ended up with what I had off of it, 16 something. Hindsight, I should have stayed on that stretch. I caught those couple and left after I had that 16.5 pound mark, because at the time I didn't want to burn fish, but at the time I didn't realize it was all a timing deal. So those fish wouldn't be there, the next hour, let alone the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely should have stayed on that stretch, rotated it a couple more times. So that was kind of the first day. It was a surprise in a way, but a big learning day. So that was where I kind of figured out, A, there's a timing deal to this, and B, what to kind of look for in particular with that. But I was just, burning a crankbait down. I said, just fishing as much of that high percentage stuff as possible.
Yeah. What about you, Brock?
Yeah, the first day, the last day of practice, I found that secondary point with all those fish schooling.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, first day of the tournament, ran down there and was able to catch a 12-pound or 11-pound limit fairly fast. And I, same thing as Will, just hit as many high percentage stuff after that, because I was really trying to focus on the largemouth, because the last day of practice I'd also caught a 4-pound and like a 4.5-pound largemouth, and I was like, okay, I need to go try to focus on that once I catch that 11-12-pound limit. And it just never happened. I mean, those fish, I could see them roaming around on that flat. I was never able to get them to trigger. But I didn't know that one spot on that secondary point with all those fish would be able to produce for the rest of the tournament for me in order to catch like 10, 11 pounds every day. But that first day was critical for me seeing big picture what that spot was.
Do you think that was a spot where you were catching resident fish? Was it that big of a population of fish, or do you think there were actually some fish moving towards that area?
There was definitely fish moving towards that area, because when I found it in practice, there was no bait. There was one brush pile. I'd say 5 to 8-ish fish that were relative to that area when I first pulled up and I was scoping around. And then by the final day, there was that the area expanded from the brush pile, so say 80-foot circle, to the back third of the creek. I could roam the entire back third of the creek, and there was fresh fish that I could fish for.
And then going into, I was going to look up the results and see so after day one, where was everybody sitting at? Will, where were you sitting at? And where were you at, Brock?
I was tied for second at that point.
15th, tied for 15th.
Okay. So you both are in very, very good positions going into the second day. I mean, how did day two go for you, Will?
So day two, like I said, I kind of figured out the timing deal on day one. So day two, I didn't get spun out. I went at 12 o'clock, I had 2 fish and still felt like I had plenty of time. So just being able to recognize, hey, there's a timing deal to this, and trusting in the process and knowing that it's going to happen definitely helped. So ended up rolling back to that stretch, I caught 16 on the day before, caught one almost 4, went up, caught like a 14-incher. That made my number 4 fish. Rolled back down towards into Clear Creek, got into Clear Creek and just caught, I think I caught 3 3-pounders on the next 3 stops. And that evening was just, I think I caught 15 fish that evening. It was, the timing just got right. Whatever it was, the fish had pulled up a little bit, and they just bit. So it was, like I said, once again, kind of a learning day. Once again, fished a lot of new water, and ended up finding new water that I would end up catching all my fish on the 3rd day.
So when you're the 2nd day, were you noticing any change in the water color, or was it still, did you still feel like you needed to be fishing shallow hard cover?
Yeah, at that point I was going to just stick it out shallow.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was, throughout the week, I was banking on that water clearing up a little bit. I thought it would clear out a little more than it did, but it just wasn't clearing that fast out on the main body. So I knew I was going to stick with that shallow game, because it was warming up. I mean, the highs were almost 70 and it was sunny. So you know, these fish are going to move shallow with some stained water. So I knew it was just a matter of time before they got up there. So I was just going to stick with it. But yeah, so I just rolled and stuck with what got me there day 1.
Yeah. So you had 16.9 on day 1 and 16.13 on day. That's 2 16-pound bags. That's very solid for that fishery. And some of those, a lot of those came off of the same general area, or?
Yes and no. Each day the stretches that they were pulled up on would change, but it was the same. It was the lower half of the lake really was my main focus. I didn't want to be on the main lake, but I didn't want to be back in the creeks. Like I said, it's kind of those transition zones where you just know those fish are going to be funneling up to spawn here in the next few weeks. So those, like I said, those are just high percentage places. And with those events, you've got to put your time in on those places, and knowing that and trusting mainly that it was a timing deal. So like I said, you kept a level head with it, knowing that it only took, 30, 45 minutes to get right.
Yeah, that's so important in fishing, and is the timing. We talk about that a lot, but it's one thing to sit here and talk about it, kind of armchair quarterback it, and it's another thing to be out on the water in the middle of a tournament where you're fishing for $100,000 and just tell yourself, okay, it's just a timing thing. It's just a timing thing, and that's. We fish.
I've told myself that a lot, and it was never showed up.
Sometimes it doesn't.
They weren't
pay
on time.
Sometimes it doesn't pay off. But if you fish a Wednesday, we fish a Wednesday nighters in the summertime. Sometimes at these small lakes, they're like 4-hour tournaments. It goes by quick, and you can literally. One strategy is to pick a high percentage point or a little 50-yard section of bank and stay with it, banking on the fish moving up sometimes, and they do. A lot of times they will, and that just proves to you that it's a timing thing, because somebody can go through and fish that bank, not catch anything. Somebody else can pull right up, and you'll see that sometimes. You'll sit back and you'll see a bank off in the distance over a 4-hour period. You'll see 5 or 6 people go down that bank. Nothing. And then you'll see somebody come in there and catch, 2 5-pounders off that bank. Those fish have just moved up. So that timing thing, man, that's critical in bass fishing.
I think that happens more than we ever know. We just, as fishermen, we don't see that happen, right? Like if you were to sit on a dock on Lake of the Ozarks on a secondary point this time of the year on tournament day, and there's a 200 boat tournament, how many people stop at that dock and fish that dock?
Mm-hmm. And you have no idea.
There was 70 people that fished that dock throughout an 8-hour day, and you were number 28, and it wasn't your time.
Yeah, and I learned that a lot fishing Lanier and Hartwell and Chattooga and all, because these spotted bass kind of set up the same way, especially summertime over brush piles. You just have to rotate, I'll rotate 50 to 100 to 150 in spots a day, knowing that at some point those fish will set up. So that's really kind of where I learned to trust that process was these spotted bass around here.
So how long do you give a spot like that? You pull up 3 or 4 casts and you're gone?
Yeah,
Or
max.
Are you just scoping it and then leaving?
No, so places like Lanier, I mean, we saw that fall tournament we had NPFL last October. Yeah, I'd give a spot maybe 3 casts and go. It's just a numbers game at that point.
Gotcha.
Because if they're gonna bite on that first or second cast. There's no milk in them. Yeah, they're either there to bite or not.
And when those spots bite, do you get them fired up like a Tennessee River school?
No.
You just
it's
get one out of a spot and then you're gone.
Yeah, there may be 100 fish there. You'll get 1 to bite, and that'll be it.
Wow,
that's crazy. Huh. So Brock, day 1 was good. Brought in a decent limit, kept you in the bank, but day 2 was quite a bit better. So talk about that.
Day 2 had the same game plan. Ran back, caught my 12, 13 pound limit. And then I ended up staying there a little bit longer, juicing it out, really trying to figure out the area. And I started going around, and I ended up catching a 4 1/4 pound spot, which bumped me up to like 14, 15. And then after that, I left. And there was a stretch of brush piles on the flat that I had caught fish in pre-practice on. And it was 10 o'clock, 10:30, pulled up there and caught the 4.8 or 4.9 largemouth that bumped me up to like 17, which I think my scales were off. So I ended up having 17.11. So then at like 11 o'clock, basically I had the rest of the day to go practice. And I had a longer day because the first day we had a fog delay and I was doing it at 3:30, but then day 2, I was doing it at 3:30, but we got off at first light. And I spent the rest of the day. I was like so excited because I'm like, all right, I have 17 pounds. I should be moving up quite a bit. And I started expanding a little bit, and I found one shell bed hard spot that on LiveScope, it just looked like a Christmas tree, just dots everywhere. I was like, oh boy, here we go. And I caught 3 2.5 pounders off of it, and I left because I was like, okay, I can't upgrade anymore, which I did cull up a 2 pounder to a 2.5 there. But then after there, I just went practicing. And one thing, looking back on how Will won and a lot of the other guys did, I should have spent that last 2-3 hours cranking, trying to figure out that shallow bite on that lower end around what I'm doing so I can mix both those bites together. But I never, I was so dialed in on that offshore game just because I could see the fish. Like I could see them there, and I was able to get a few of them to bite. And like Will said in practice, how he caught like 35 catfish. One joke on live was I would catch 2 or 3 catfish per my 1 bass. So I would catch 2 to 3 catfish, and then I'd look back at the live camera. I'd go, all right, it's time to catch a bass now. It should be right. And then I would catch it.
Yeah. That's a misconception that I used to have. I always thought catfish are like bottom feeders. They eat like chicken liver and stuff that's laying on the bottom. And they're right up in there with the other fish eating shads.
Tail cats get after it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing. I mean,
that's been my best bite on LiveScope, was like a 20, 22, 23 pound channel cat. Yeah. A freaking tank.
I bet you that felt good when it bit.
On a swim jig suspended over a brush pile. Yeah, on braid, about broke my arm. Like, he's hit the hook and it was just like, boom. Like, yeah. It is a move.
Oh, we got onto the drum.
Oh my
at Bull shows. That was fun. I'm sure some of the people on here saw some of my Facebook posts, but we sat up on a school of drum that were relating to this deep tree. The boat's in like 80, the drummer are like in 40. And it was like
they were spread from like 40 all the way down to the top of that tree.
Yeah. And there was about 40 or 50 drum. And we were dropping on them just like we were, next level crappie fishing. It was it was
like
fun,
crappie fishing on steroids.
Yeah, it was a blast. So that's another fish that gets up there and follows bait fish around just like the bass do. Yeah, Stephanie always asks a lot of good questions. There's some Phil's said she should start her own podcast because she's got so many good questions, and she does. She asks a lot of really good questions, and that's what makes this show really cool. Is all the questions that get asked. Some of the questions maybe things that we know, but even if we know them, it's good to be refreshed. It's always good to get a refresher course, and certainly appreciate that. She also asked about, I guess, going into, let's kind of recap day 1 and day 2, some of the baits that you guys were throwing. We haven't really talked about that much.
We know that Will's new favorite bait is the jig.
Absolutely. I just want to shout out Stu for watching. I'm just a little older than 15, not by much, but just a little. But yeah, days 1 and 2, I think out of the 10 fish I weighed in, 8 came on just a KVD 1.5 square bill. And I think 2 came on just a 3/8 ounce little finesse jig out of some brush piles. But like I said, I locked those 2 rods in my hand all week and just burned the bank down.
Were you throwing a Crock red crankbait? I can't remember.
Yes, yeah, it was called a chili crawl color. Throwing on Arc 7.2 medium rod, 6.4 gear ratio reel, and then actually I was throwing just 15-pound big game mono.
Nice.
I would say taking it back, but since you're only like 15 and a half, you really don't know what big game mono is all about.
There was a time that's all there was.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. On that chili crawl, rattling or silent?
Silent. Had to be the silent.
Okay.
Yeah. Just because I think a lot of these, now this is just me speaking, but I think a lot of these places, guys were fishing them, and you would think stained muddy water, you want the rattle, you want it loud, whatever. But that silent seemed to get more bites on it. So it could have just been me, but I felt a lot more confident with that silent.
We saw that at Bull, what was that, Sunday when it was raining? Or Monday?
Yeah.
One day it was raining.
Yeah.
There's 3 of us cranking a bank, at different levels, but 2 had.
I was throwing like a rock crawler. I think Dale was throwing like the deep wiggle wart. So he was covering that.
He had the gravel dog, didn't he?
Did he? No, I had a gravel dog.
You had the gravel dog.
And he had a rock crawler probably.
Okay.
But
both of them had rattles.
Right. And then he was throwing a DT6
Yep.
silent. And he caught 2 fish behind us.
Yep.
Yeah. So they were definitely preferring that silent bait over, something with rattles.
Yeah. Man, Brock, you're old.
Golly.
You're younger.
You're up in the average.
Brock is not 38. Will, you're like 18, 19?
22.
22. And then Brock, you're right there, 22, 23, something like that?
Yeah, Brock, 20.
Okay, you got it. I missed that. Yeah. Definitely young guns.
Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah. That was a popular.
Yeah. Can we see the Harkey?
I like that.
If I knew what it was, I would do it for y'all.
So after watching the podcast with you and Duncan, I had to go back and find the Harkey. I was like, I gotta see this.
Yeah. Not my brightest moment in life.
Hey, man, there's nothing wrong with showing some emotions.
Whenever you catch fish and stuff's going good,
I think somebody's calling you out.
I saw Grant in here a while ago too. I got to fish with Grant last year, I think, or 2 years ago, like the Ozarks. We had fun that day. All right, Brock, did you talk about your baits yet on day 1?
I did not.
Okay.
Baits day 1, day 2, and day 3 were very simple. It was a jerk bait and a scope head with a scope shad worm, 1/4 ounce head. Pretty, nothing special there. It was just, the main difference was on the jerk bait. There was a little bit of chartreuse on the belly so that they could see it. On the Mickey rig, like I said before, it was pearl white. Those were the, that was the main 2 differences that I was throwing.
What was your water visibility throwing that?
I'd say is 1.5 foot.
Okay.
So it wasn't terrible, but
but that just like dispels everything that we knew growing up, that if it's cold, muddy water, they go to the bank.
Yeah.
Not anywhere near the truth.
Well, and I bet you had to be pretty accurate with that minnow rig too.
Even with the jerk bait, I think that was the big difference, that I think I stuck with it. I was a little bit more hard headed with the LiveScope than a lot of the other guys, because I was like, before you could cast it, because normally with a Demiki rig or a jerkbait or a swim bait or whatever you're throwing, when you're LiveScoping, you keep it 2 to 5 foot above their head so that they can feed it up. But after day 1 of practice, day 2 of practice, I learned that you had to basically put it right in front of their nose in order for them to see it. And then the big thing with LiveScope, I'm sure everybody knows, you have to pull it almost away from them to get them fired up to go after it. So once you got it in front of their face, it was a 50-50 chance. Either they'd swim the other way or they would go after it. Then you'd have to really, really work it and make sure that they could see it in order for them to get it.
That's fun though, man, when it pays off, when they come after it. I love that.
It's pretty
Good
fun,
time.
especially those spotted dogs, because they go crazy on it.
Yeah. I caught a fish a week ago on a jerkbait, and it came over there after. It came from about 10 feet away, but it kind of stalled out, and it was just kind of looking at it. And I lifted my rod tip up, and I shook that jerkbait and kind of made it come up, and it got up there, and all of a sudden it just slammed it. It was cool, man. It was cool. It was just like teasing a cat, with a piece of yarn or something. Got a question?
Yeah. Big out.
Oh,
so this question for Brock: what was your reaction the first day of your first event as a pro with the NPFL?
Great question.
Very humbling. The meeting was incredible, because I walked in the meeting, and I know I said this on the podcast we did earlier during practice, and I saw Drew Cook, Patrick Walters, all these guys that I'm like, oh my gosh, like, here we go. I'm in it now. And after the first day, being able to do what I did and kind of see where, certain names landed, college fishing definitely prepared me for the stressfulness of it, where I wasn't worried about going into a tournament like this. But seeing those big names, I was still like, oh my gosh, here we go. And kind of the end-all answer for that question is everybody's a fisherman. Everybody's, we're all human. It's just fishing. We're all out there competing against the fish. And that's what I had to keep in my head throughout the entire event was I'm fishing against the fish, not the anglers.
Yeah. Right? You all have the same playing field, right? You all have the same options to run wherever you want to run. As soon as you pitch yourself against the anglers, then I feel you're one step behind. It's like showing up to the Wednesday nighter and a Drew Cook or Patrick Walters is this truck sitting there in the parking lot, and you're going, dang it. We're all fishing for second. Well, no, you're fishing for the win, just like everybody else is. But you put that in your mind and you get a little spun out. You gotta, like you said, college fishing kind of prepares you for that. You got to settle your nerves and get right into the groove and just understand that you fish the way that Brock or Will likes to fish, and you keep moving. So, yeah.
Were you able to
be humbling though?
Were you able to talk to any of the established pros?
No, not really. But it is funny. So I work for everybody watching the podcast. I do work for Baitworks, and I'm involved with pro staff. I'm involved, with the whole back end of Baitworks, and Drew Cook, and we're involved with Drew Cook and Drew Benton with the cut line.
That's right. I forgot about that.
So it was kind of funny coming to the event, fishing it, and having talked to Drew Cook at Classic and on the phone and talking business and whatnot, now fishing against him. But I did not talk to any of the anglers during practice or the tournament.
Here you go. I got one for you then, Brock. Since you're working at Baitworks, how many of those orders do you look at the names that come through and take a little peek?
Not a lot, because they're very hard to keep up with.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
We do get a lot of orders. Rather, it's because you'd be surprised with the amount of guys that order a $5 jig and pay $7 for shipping for it. So there's a lot there's a lot of orders that go up that I can't really go through all of them.
No, I get it. I was
and by the way, too, just a reminder to everybody, you see the ticker there. THM10 will get you 10% off at Baitworks on your first order. And they are super. You guys nail it on the speed of shipping. I know Duncan always talks about this on Low Budget Live, but I've ordered several times from Baitworks, and like my last order, I think I ordered, it was like, I don't know, like 11 o'clock on a Wednesday night, and it was there Friday, so literally 2 days.
I ordered that on Sunday, and you can see when it's coming.
Yeah. So it's pretty, I mean, we're fairly close, granted, but still, you guys you get it packed, you get it boxed up, and you get it in the stream really quick. So shout out to Baitworks for that.
Yes.
It means a lot. Yeah. You got a good system going down there. So back to let's go into day 3, Will. Day 3, break that down for us.
Yeah. So day 3, that morning, really no nerves or anything. I was actually kind of like almost down in a way, because I'd been in that position at Santee last year, at Eufaula last year, at Lanier last year, and just thinking, man, I cannot mess this up again. I wanted to close one out, so very, very calm that morning. I just want to go fish, have fun, and I kind of understand if it's your time to win, you can't do anything wrong. It'll fall into your lap. So that morning, decided to start somewhere I'd never started. I'd always been in the evening rotation on. Decided, you know what, I'm just going to start on this little stretch just to see. And pulled up there, and in like 30 minutes had like 12 pounds in the boat. I'm like, okay, because I hadn't had a limit before 1 o'clock all week. And so to have that in the live well, and I had one that was like 0.7 pounds. So to have that and have that little guy in there, I was feeling a lot calmer. But then I hit that midday lull every day. So I went 5 hours without a bite. And it was just, that's when the emotions start creeping in, when the worry starts creeping in. And when you really got to keep all that in check. So I had to just do a little mental reset, sat down, ate me a cookie, and just, you got to look at the bright side of things. Yeah. At worst case, I get a check this week or, whatever. You got to go out there and have fun. And most of all, the money's great, trophy's great and all, but it's your impact on the people that you leave. That's the best thing. If you're not helping others, if you're not being that light to others, then what's the point of fishing? So kind of that moment of reflection on, we had the outreach. That was awesome. So that moment of break and reflection, and then kind of got ready to go fishing again. So it kind of re-gears you up, mental reset. Went that evening cold once or twice, caught 6 or 7 fish after, between 2 and 4 that day. And just ended up going in. I wasn't worried about where I'd end up in. I know I didn't think I had enough to win. I thought I needed another 16, 17 pounds. So I was just, lackadaisical, whatever. Got to the ramp, talked to Brock, talked to a couple other guys, and I'm like, well, yeah, maybe this one works out, maybe it doesn't. So Kyle Welcher pulls up behind me in line, and I'm like, I don't even care. I'm gonna go meet this guy. So I kind of got geeked out at meeting Welcher. So that was cool.
He's only the angler of the year last year in Bassmaster.
Yeah.
This is before you weighed in on the final day?
Oh yeah, this is all before.
Cool.
Yeah. Like I said, wasn't worried. Then on the drive there, it's like a 25, 30-minute drive. That's when I sat down and I'm like, golly, the stress and the nerves all kick in. You did everything you could do all day. It's just up to the end. So just to finally close that out was just a massive relief and stress reliever after being so close last year so many times.
Heck yeah. That was good stuff, man. It was good stuff. You did great on camera too, by the way.
Appreciate it. Yeah, you gotta make it fun for the viewers.
Yeah, you got a little Harkey in there. I mean, you broke down what you were doing really well, and there was a lot to be learned by listening. How heavy is the trophy?
Oh, it's like 35 pounds.
It's like, okay, you've been practicing for 3 days. You've been fishing your balls off for 3 days. You're dehydrated. You got no food in your stomach. And then somebody hands you like this huge, massive piece of structure. And you're like supposed to hold it up, or I'm like, I'm always waiting for somebody to drop it. You know, it's like, I don't know if
I almost did.
I bet.
He handed it to me. I'm like, what the world? So I couldn't lift it up straight. So it was kind of crooked up there, but it was heavy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
cool. gonna be the classic one day. Somebody's gonna lift that big classic trophy and it's just gonna go.
Yeah.
Big Al's got a question here for you. It says, Will, explain to us the lows and the highs of the sport. From being so close in Oklahoma last year to winning the first event in 2024, how do you keep a strong mindset 2 months between events?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Hitting us with the heavy hitters tonight.
What's that?
He's hitting us with the heavy questions tonight.
I know.
That's a great question.
Yeah, I'm going to take last year as a whole. So highs and lows of it. Like first event, spun out, Pickwick. You see all these pros, like Brock was saying. It's like, holy cow, it was so cool. Second event, I was sick in urgent care during practice and off day. So it really wasn't going to get to fish Texas, but ended up going out there and fishing. So there's a lot of lows that people don't see. A lot of stress, a lot of time. It's not go out there for 3 days and have fun and fish and all. There's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that doesn't get talked about, doesn't get seen. So a lot that goes into it there. And it's such a mental battle, the highs and lows of it all. If your mind is not in it, you will not perform well. So it definitely was a little emotional at Eufaula last year. Happy for Louie, happy how it turned out. But definitely a lot of emotions that go into the sport that you really wouldn't realize. So you've got to keep a mental check on things. The moment you lose your mental side, the moment you spin out, it all falls apart. So just like I said, you've got to have those little mental resets. You've got to have those little breaks. And then look at each day and each event as just a whole new event. The past ones don't matter. You have to go into it with the same intensity, same purpose, same drive as every other event. And I think that, that nuance, and you get in that habit of doing such, it makes the fishing part and the mental part a lot easier.
Yeah, that's well said, man. That's so important to just look at each event as an individual event and, leave it out on the water. That's kind of a cliche term, but it's so true, man. It's so true.
I mean, you can say that Will did that. I mean, he had no idea that he won the tournament and is going up and geeking out over Kyle. Like, he left it all out there that day. I mean, that just shows you the fisherman that he is. He left it all out in the water that day. Came in and he's not mad, he's not upset. His emotions are level at this point, and we're just going to let the cards fall where they may, right?
Exactly.
And like you said, when it's your time, it's your time. There's nothing that can stop you. You can't screw it up. I can go back. I can look back at the times that I've won or fished well in tournaments and won tournaments, and it's like, you tried everything. I mean, I won tournaments with single day events with 4 fish. Like, you're fighting to the last second to try to catch a fish. You come in, you're almost late, and it's like, golly, and I put all this stress on undue stress on myself that I didn't need to. So good for you for keeping that level of emotions and not letting it get the best of you. So,
all right, Brock, going out day 3. Do you remember where were you at in the standings going out on the day 3?
I was 3rd place, 3 pounds flat behind Will.
Okay, gotcha. So Will's leading. You're right there behind him, but which is still doable. I mean, if Will brings in 12 and you bring 16, which you've seen those kind of bags, they are out there to be caught. You're
going
right
into
there.
it. It was like, okay, so in order for me to have a chance, either I have to have a crazy day and catch 21 pounds or something. But I was like, either I'm going to have to catch another 17, and, you know, Will's going to have to, you know, slack a little bit in order for me to give me a chance to catch up. So I'm like, all I'm going to do is I focused on fishing for largemouth, and went out there, roamed around that same area, suspended fish, caught 12, 11. Actually, what I weighed in, I caught 12, 11. And the rest of the day I went largemouth fishing, and it just never clicked for me. I felt like I ran out of fish to a point. In the back end of Clear Creek and Rabbit Creek, I mean, it's a quarter of the size of Gravois, I would say. So it's like it's a fairly small area, and there was only so many brush piles in that area that I felt like I could fish to catch those largemouth. And I think I've just fished for them so many times that they, you know, I would only have one or two shot like with them, like the spotted bass type of deal that Will was talking about. I'll throw a jerkbait over there, and I would get one or two chances at them, and then they would be gone. They'd swim away. And it just goes back to I should have adjusted a little bit and found some shallow fish to go crank at, you know, try to find more fish than what I was doing. Because there was definitely not a lot of largemouth chasing bait out there.
Yeah, I feel we're an underrated channel, but you know what? We have fun. We spread good knowledge to the general public, and that's really what life is about, in my opinion.
You fishing it? LBL next weekend?
Yeah, I'll be down there. Yep, first tournament of the year in the LBL division will be 2 weeks, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm hoping it doesn't snow or ice, or it's like time of year, man, where you just don't know what's going to happen. It can be
that's
like
for sure
50s and 60s, and then boom, all of a sudden you have one of those Arctic blasts that come down.
I saw Dale, who we fished with down at Bull Shoals yesterday, posted snow.
Yeah, Springfield and Arkansas, they got
hammered, right?
Snow for sure.
Did you guys get any snow down there, bro?
Yeah, we got like 7 inches.
Jesus.
Are you kidding me?
But no. In Springfield, they only got like 3. But where I'm at, we got 7 inches. And
7 inches?
Wow.
Yeah, like I went out to my truck, and it was set, like I measured it 7 inches.
So for those that you don't, we're on the same, like,
we're a little bit
north. We're on the same line, basically,
slightly
though.
North, just slightly.
Not much, though.
Not much, yeah.
But
that just, it was that clipper. It just
44 yesterday is the high here.
Never saw a drop of rain, nothing.
Like, I was actually headed, I'm a traveling guy, so I was headed west, and I saw the forecast at like 7:30, 7:45. I was like, I better stay closer to home today. Like, if I don't want to get all the way out, like, middle of the state and then have to come back home in a mess, right? Like, I have the option. I can work here. And I went out there today and talked to the guys, and they're like, no, we didn't get anything over here. So really, like, must have been right on the line.
Yeah, no. Yeah, Springfield didn't get like a lot. I thought I took a picture of it because it was crazy looking at my window. Because it's the most snow. I didn't take a picture or save it, but it was the most snow I've seen. Where down here, I was like, oh my gosh. And then of course it got up to like 45, like you were saying, 47, and it melted away basically by the end of the day.
Wow. That's my kind of snow.
That's
working outside. That's my kind of snow. I love snow, but I hate
that's
walking in it for days and days.
That's Missouri weather, though, right? Like, we get snow one day, and then tomorrow, what is it going to be, like mid-60s?
Yeah, that's nice. So back to day 3, Brock. After you put the boat on the trailer, what were your thoughts? What thoughts were going through your head on the way to the arena?
So Will and I put our boats on the trailer at the same time, and Will looked over at me, and I looked over at him. He goes, "You got him, Brock?" And I go, "Nah." I go, "What do you got?" He goes, 12. And I'm like, no. I mean, what'd you weigh in, Will? Like 14?
Yeah, 14, 3 or 6 or something.
But so when we were putting boats on the trailer, I'm like, oh no, I left it out there. Like I could have caught a 16, 17 pound bag. And, at least I was like, Will's going to catch 12 no matter what. So I was like, that's what I was basing my weight off of, which I never caught a big enough largemouth to be able to do that. But I was like, oh, no. And the emotions on the stage was incredible. Knowing more than likely, like high percentage the chances were that Will was going to beat me. But the emotions of sitting in that seat, first tournament out of college, professional level, like I'm sitting here, the trophy's right next to me. It's dark out. Will's the last guy to weigh in. The emotions, I felt things I never felt before. I was like, it was incredible. I'm going to be striving to get back to that position for the rest of the year.
I was going to say, does it make that fire burn just hotter and hotter every time?
It makes me want to win one very, very, very bad.
Well, that's what's cool about having like both of you on here tonight. Will, you were in that same boat last year, right? Like,
oh yeah,
not so long ago last year. We talking about you were going through the same emotions that Brock's going through tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I was there. Because the same team finished third. Eufaula tied for first and lost it. Lanier finished second. So each and every time it's like, yeah, I doubt Brock will have to wait that long for his, but it's definitely emotions that you never feel otherwise. If you lose that passion, if you lose that fire, then quit fishing. That's what we live for. That's what we strive for. So it's definitely cool to experience that. Like I said, it's a massive relief when you come up that close, when you do finally get one.
Yeah. And then coming into the season, like you said, Brock, entering the professional realm, there's a lot that has to fall in place. It's a big financial, commitment. And of course you want to do good. And when you're sitting there on day 3 and you're in contention to win, that has to just be, a really good feeling.
Yeah. Cause my entire college career, I was building up the dream of hoping after college going directly into a professional league. And I had an enormous amount of support. That's the biggest thing that my emotions got tied up with was there's people that honestly I didn't even have their number saved in my phone number that were texting me like, go get him tomorrow, good luck. And my phone was just blowing up, and I'm sure all of our phones were just blowing up. And having that much support from your hometown, from sponsors, from family, friends, people you don't even know reaching out, telling you good luck. That's an incredible feeling. Like I don't have words to explain it, but it gives you another level of drive to go try to get it done.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
I want to go back to you guys both sitting on the boat ramp. How often do you guys lie to each other?
We're fishermen. What do you expect?
Yeah, I mean, come on.
They're going to lie about lying to each other.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
No, I always, whether it's on the Way Live tracker or whatever, I always want a low ball. You never want to tell anyone what you actually have, because then it's like, it makes you feel a little better when you weigh in. It's like, I beat my prediction or whatever. So you never want to guess over what you've got. But yeah,
you don't want to be that guy, right?
Yeah, no. But yeah, on live, I was like, all day, I was like, dude, if there's one person I'm worried about in this field, it's Brock, because I know what he's doing. I know the potential of that. I wish I had figured that deal out. But that's a way to win this tournament. And so coming in with only, 13, 14 pounds, I was like, the door is wide open. So I pulled up and I'm like, do I just need to throw my fish back? And he's like, I don't know. But so it was cool. But
so did you guys see each other out on the water during the tournament?
Not
other
that
than riding by, no.
I think you were fishing more towards the mouth, like you were saying, of creeks, and I was, for the most part, fishing the way backs.
Yeah.
Okay. But you were in similar areas or not?
I think so.
Similar section of the lake, basically?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought you guys were saying. I heard you guys both mention
And then
creek or something.
Another thing, the last day, I'm having a brain fart right now, but I forgot his name. But I'm driving with the camera guy, and I look over, and there's a pontoon, a local fisherman in like a 1990s Ranger, and an NPFL angler with his motor trimmed up and his lower unit plumb gone.
Oh.
Like gone, and all of them are on the front deck waving their arms, freaking out. And I peeled over real fast. And do you know his name, Will? I'm drawing a blank.
I don't know who it was.
Isaac, maybe?
PV House?
PV House. Yep, that's it.
No.
So he's over there waving his arms, and so my videographer, Nate, he used to work for Baitworks, but he knows nothing about fishing. So Isaac is trying to explain to Nate the process of, he's already called the tournament director. He can ride in with me, but he wants Nate to stay with the boat. His fish need to go in my boat. And Nate is over here like freaking out. And this is the last day of the tournament, like final day.
Yeah.
And Nate, I was like, Nate, I'll come get you. Isaac, jump in, grab your fish. Let's go. And I didn't even say a word to Nate. Nate didn't even know what was going on. He doesn't know how to drive a boat, run a trolling motor, nothing. And Isaac jumped in the boat.
You just left him for dead. I mean,
we just left him off, gone. And I was texting, or I was telling Isaac, I'm like, hey, here's Nate's phone number. You need to text him where to go. You need to get this local and tell him where to go, because he doesn't know how to do anything. And it was a very packed full final day. And then they had to kept us back for the weigh-ins, to make sure all the weights were correct. And that was stressful. And
so how did he get back to you?
So how'd this go? Isaac's dad.
He came back, and Nate's got 5 for 20 that he caught on a wacky rig.
Yeah.
You guys should have been throwing a sink up.
Isaac's dad was at weigh-in, drove back to the launch, got in Isaac's truck, and then Isaac took his dad's truck to weigh in. So then Isaac and I were there, and then he met Nate at this boat ramp by himself. The local took him to, that was like at this trailer house. Like there was a bunch of trailer houses on the bank, and there was this little gravel boat ramp, and Nate was like lost. He was texting me like, I don't know what to do. And luckily his dad is like an hour after they got there, he finally showed up and got him on the trailer and took him back. And Nate got back to weigh in as the weighing was completed, and they were handing out checks, and we rolled out.
Wow.
Yeah, that's got to be. I mean, it's hard for us to even fathom that, because I've been on a boat since I could walk, basically. A lot of us probably are in the same boat, like no pun intended there, but running a trolling motor, running an outboard, that's kind of just second nature. You put somebody in that situation that's never. I've taken buddies fishing that they're fishermen, but they're not boat fishermen, and you put them on a trolling motor, and they're like, "How do you?" I remember a buddy of mine. He's like, "Which way do you push the trolling motor to go to left and right?" I'm like, I don't know. Like, I had to sit there and look at my foot and think about it. Like, it's just all natural. I don't think about it anymore. So
huge shout out to Nate for doing that, jumping in the boat and let Isaac get back to weigh-in, and he actually ended up cutting a check because of that.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, and I watched your practice video too last night. Well done. Nate's great commentary, Brock, throughout the whole video, and Nate's done a really good job of putting it all together. So you guys got a good product there.
Yeah, the final tournament video, which is definitely a lot cooler. I got a sneak peek from Nate working on it. That's coming out Thursday or Friday this week.
That's cool. Will, do you have a channel? I didn't get a chance to check and see if you got anything out there.
No, I do not. I kind of I'm not real techie with stuff. I kind of wanted to get the fishing part down first before jumping into that, but definitely would not be against it here soon.
Yeah. It takes a lot of work, but it's well, let's just be honest. In the world of sponsorships and stuff, it's something that they definitely like to see, and it's cool to have a finished product. Like you can go back and 2 years from now, you can watch that. Your family can watch that video, and everybody can sit around and say, "There's Uncle Will. You know, he caught. That's when he won $100,000 tournament, and you know, it's good stuff." So it'll happen.
It's just another
man.
part of the process in the morning. Like I'm not great at it, but I've learned to like set it and forget it. Like set the camera back there and just roll.
Yeah.
And it was hard in the beginning, but I don't produce any content like Gabe does. I just do it all for personal. You know, I'll edit the videos and I may throw them on YouTube, but they're under private. Nobody can view them. But they're just for my kids. Honestly, at the end of the day, like put some stuff together, nothing fancy, and my kids like that. So I think it's the coolest thing that Dad done on it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But
let's give away a $25 Baitworks gift card before we wrap this stream up. And I think the way we're going to do it is we're just going to do the random generator thing tonight.
You have one pulled up?
Yeah, I've got it pulled up. Let me pull it in. Let's see. This is only like the third time I've done this. So we've got it here. Let's see. Right there. So while I'm doing this, this could take a couple minutes. What do you guys think about the next couple tournaments that are coming up?
I'm Hartwell. I'm extremely looking forward to. I boat captain. I fished multiple college tournaments there, but I actually got stuck there for 2 weeks last year because my transmission of my truck went out. So I actually got to pre-fish indirectly a long time during that time of year last year. So I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
Yeah, we got an Amistad, I think, next, and it's definitely not in my wheelhouse. Yeah, it'll be a shallow largemouth deal. Definitely excited for Hartwell, though. Spent a lot of time over there. I'm only about 45 minutes from the closest ramp over there. So definitely excited to get there. It'll be amazing, awesome time to be there. A lot of things will be happening. So you're going to see guys catch them a lot of different ways.
Cool. Okay, so we're going to do it like this. If you want to be entered in the drawing for a $25 Baitworks gift card, hashtag TNPFL. And I can still say NPFL, but we got to add that T on there because there's a Nigerian professional football league, apparently.
Yeah.
It's got the same tag. So shout out to the Nigerian professional football league. So yeah, we'll let this load up a little bit and then we'll do a little giveaway. There was a couple questions here. Let me back up real quick. Oh, here's a good question from Stephanie. She said, can you share information with others, such as the guys you room with, buddies, etc.? Can you get info from locals? Just talk about that whole information thing.
Yeah, so you can share with people within the league. You cannot receive or share info with people outside of the fishing field. So you'll see several of these guys, kind of work together. Like Patrick Walters, Corbersley, and Trent, they all kind of practice together. Several guys do that. So you can definitely share some info within the field, but not exterior info.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. And anything, like the live. Are you guys allowed to go back and look at the live during the tournament, or how's that work?
No, we're not. We can't look at any of the media, media to gain an advantage fishing that in that tournament.
Okay. So that's an honor thing, and that's something that will come out if you get a random polygraph deal, I guess.
Yeah, it was asked.
Mm-hmm. Here's a good question. You guys could both dive into this. It says for Brock, but same for Will. Your home lake style overall best suits you. Favorite forward facing sonar bait. Favorite times of the year. It's a lot of questions.
Home Lake the Ozarks. Style that best suits me. That shallow offshore game that you can scope them, but not really. I would rather just throw a crankbait, but off the bank where I don't think like a lot of people are fishing. Favorite forward-facing sonar bait, definitely a scope shad. And favorite time of year, probably September, like in September, early October, where I can go throw a glide bait. And I think there's a lot of big fish to be caught on a glide bait that time of year.
When you're doing that shallow scoping, are you throwing that scope shad up there?
No, it's more of the jerk bait style.
Okay.
Are you a megabass guy on the jerk bait, or do you have something else that you like?
I throw a large majority of them, but I like every jerk bait has a different action, right? Mm-hmm. And one thing, so I don't really have a particular one because I just there's different jerk baits for different situations, but definitely the main thing is adding wire. But did you guys see the that Megabass post that they made with the guy, the cartoon or the college guy adding foam to the
from
back
a Chick-fil-A cup or something? Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like that was brilliant, but I think the biggest thing when throwing a jerk bait is having that sink rate spot on. But
I'm not going to talk about it because I've been sworn to secrecy, but Jake Lawrence is another guy that you're going to be hearing a lot about. He got second place in the Invitational, and he's a hell of a scoper as well. He's got some pretty unique little tricks that I got to witness and being in the boat with him. I can't talk about it, but sometime maybe years down the line, but there's some little sneaky things that are still going on that people aren't talking about, and that's the way it should be. So even though you got a live camera on you, there's still some. It's not all out there, not 100% out there. And as long as somebody doesn't make a YouTube video about it and expose it, there's still a few secrets out there. Will, what about you? Like the same questions?
Yeah. So home lake, I have like 5 lakes within 30 minutes. I mean, probably Chatoog is the one I spend the most time on. Chatoog, Notley, Lanier, kind of the big 3. Same thing offshore, depth is just a number. I don't care. Yeah. I would much rather be in that 50 to 150 feet range. I like fishing shallow. Notley's a shallower lake. It's more like a Logan Martin, more of a river. So that's where I kind of learned to fish a lot shallower. But yeah, I definitely prefer to be way out there. And same thing, a Demiki style bait. Around here we use a lot of flukes in the summertime and fall for spots. 90% of what we have around here is spotted bass. So you've got all your fun topwaters, your Sevilles, your flukes. So all the fun stuff.
So the Demiki stuff, it's been around for a long time. How'd you guys pick up on that? Did somebody show you that? Were you fishing with somebody, or did you watch a video about it and you decided to buy the stuff and go out and test it? I'm always curious about how somebody came across a bait and a technique that's, especially with forward facing sonar, something that's so standard right now. Where did that come from? Yeah,
so for me personally, I kind of, when I first got LiveScope, I was the traditional pulling up on community stuff, fishing, whatever. Got to learn really quick, these fish will suspend and chase bait out in nothing. So seeing those big schools and all out there, I'm like, there's got to be something. I was just throwing Kitech. Got to be something better. So I actually learned it through East Tennessee's tight lining technique. They do for some of the smallmouth, but they're more fishing those 45-degree banks. Like, you know what? I'm gonna try this for the spots out here, and it worked wonders. That's kind of how I learned it, and then it's blown up in the last year or two. But
yeah, I think for me personally, I started seeing it when it was Jacob Willer. I think it was a Bassmaster tournament on Cherokee Lake. It's when that smallmouth, they were dropping on the smallmouth and they were Demiki rigging. It wasn't necessarily the more lighter heads casting to them, with the minnow bait. It was it was more vertical, traditional and Demiki style. I don't know when that was. It seems like that was gosh, 6-7 years ago or something like that. I don't know. Time flies, but that's when it
had to be if he was fishing bass.
Yeah, because he's been with MLF for a while, but that's when I remember kind of seeing that happen. And then unfortunately, where we're at, there are certain techniques that just don't seem to work that well. I mean, that's kind of a special. I mean, I say that, but let me back up. We don't have the deep, clear lakes like a Table Rock or a Beaver or Bull Shoals around here. A lot of our stuff is a lot shallower. We got a lot more grass. The fish tend to relate to grass more around here, and I know that's something that you can do around grass as well. But it didn't translate as well because I bought the stuff and I went out and I tried to make it happen. There is one lake around here where it does work pretty consistently, but the lake that I fish quite often, I just couldn't get it going. I mean, you might catch a fish, but it might take you 2 or 3 hours. Now this is pre forward facing sonar too. This is 2D and down scan, side scan, find a few fish and try to sit on top of them with 2D and down scan.
The fish that you were catching out there though were smaller fish.
They're smaller fish, but it just wasn't as applicable to our local fisheries as it is to some of these Clearwater, Highland impoundments. But I still tried it and I got away from it. And then I started seeing it come back. And then when I went down to Bull Shoals like 3 years ago and fished with Del Coven, it was this time of year where the fish are way out there deep chasing those bait balls. And I got to fish that way and catch fish. And then now it's something that, I keep on the deck of my boat, at least during the cold water period. I mean, I'm going to be expanding it a lot more this year, but the thing that's nice about winter fishing is it's more simpler. You don't have to worry about frogs, your top waters. That's all out of the equation. A lot of your moving baits aren't quite as productive. I mean, there's always
half your tackle and about 3/4 of the weight's gone.
Yeah, it can be a rig, jerk bait, and a jig minnow. Really, I mean, I like to throw a shaky head too. But what happens is when the water gets warmer, I tend to put some of those more traditional winter baits away and expand to like your chatter baits and your swim jigs and stuff like that. But that's something I'm going to keep, just like the jerk bait. That's something I'm going to keep on the deck of my boat throughout the year. That was a long. I don't even know where I was going with that. But Brock, what about you? Where'd you get into the Demiki?
Seeing Gussie 2D it.
Oh yeah.
See Gussie 2Ding it and going out on Table Rock and throwing it in like immediate post spawn because those fish were just sitting up high in the timber would go crazy for it. But that's where I learned.
Yeah, because it was kind of like a drop shot. People were doing that with a drop shot a lot first, and then all of a sudden it became like the Demiki rig. Or I mean, maybe the Demiki rig was going on a lot, while the drop shot stuff was going on. But it's kind of the same. You're catching the same fish basically.
The crappie guys knew all about this stuff way before we did.
Oh, I know. Those crappie guys. Yeah. Ahead of us on LiveScope and the crappie breaks.
I mean, just the fact we just spent a couple days out at Bull Shoals and it's humbling because you're just throwing a crappie jig.
It's a big crappie jig.
It's just a big, not even a big crappie jig because we caught decent crappie on it every day. So yeah. Let's give away this gift card real quick.
All right, we're gonna draw. Barry Leonard. All right. Good job. Congratulations, Barry. Just get a hold of me on Facebook at Gabe Montgomery Fishing, or 10 Horse Monty, and Instagram 10 Horse Monty 6.
And I know
I'll get you taken care
it kind of slid through the comments there, but did Brock? Did you say that we got the code fixed? It's
yep.
Multiple use now.
Yep.
That is huge, man. That is That is huge. So order up. You guys have a lot of good deals too. That's another thing. Most people on here have liked Baitworks on their Facebook page, but I'd encourage you to make sure that that's coming up on your feed, because you do like you got a lot of little random things that pop up, like really good deals. You know,
yeah. Like one of them right now is you get to choose between an A-rig or a jerk bait, and whichever one gets the most votes, you'll get 15% off one of the two. And then Austin Culberson I'll go film him out on the water catching fish on it and how he throws it. So that's one thing that's active right now.
That's pretty cool, man. I saw that today. That's really, really cool.
I'm just waiting on all my stuff to get here. It's going to be here tomorrow.
It's going to be here tomorrow. It's a big day. I got a couple baits. I finally bought one of those, the Credge.
Yeah.
Have you guys played with that yet?
Yeah.
A little bit.
A little bit. Okay. I got a couple of them. I'm gonna be throwing them around here before too long.
Yeah, Berkeley's really good at marketing.
Great. So I should return them before I open them up. Still in the package.
That's hilarious.
That's good.
Yeah, whatever.
Either that, or we can go back to the comment earlier about lying to everybody. One or two.
Right situation. There's going to be a place and time for that, I'm sure.
It's going to be So look at. I think back. The first thing that came to mind when you said
Thanks,
that was Steve Kennedy and the big swim baits out on the Delta, like that one swim bait that Bass Pro Shops produced, which is I think it's the Boom Boom bait now, but like those things that end up in a bargain bin somewhere down the line can just be absolute dynamite. So, and that may be the case with a lot of stuff that's.
But that was a crappy swim bait too, wasn't it? I mean, didn't you have to tune it really perfect?
I don't know, but it went like wildfire there for a little bit.
Yeah.
So
that's all it is. It just takes somebody to have a good tournament on it, and they sell millions of them.
That's right.
Well, man, let's wrap this up. This was a really, really good stream. I appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Great breakdowns on not only the practice days, but the tournament days, the baits. Congratulations to both of you guys. And I mean, we'll all be following along, definitely, for sure. Anything before we go? I mean, we don't have to wrap it up right now, but you guys want to talk about anything else, or any shout outs, or any last words?
Yes, no, thank y'all for having us on. A lot of fun. Just thank everyone for all the support. And like Brock was saying, the phone's been crazy. So just thanks to everybody. And yeah, excited to see where this little fishing dream goes.
Yeah. You got what? Are you fishing other stuff, Will? Or are you just NPFL?
No, I mean, I'll fish a tournament a week, but that's pretty much all the big stuff. We've got winter trails around here, BFLs around here, stuff like that. But
yeah, I thought it was cool. What'd you guys think about you both being on here? Like, because you could have did a separate stream with each of you for sure, and that may be something later on down the road. But I thought I kind of like the idea of having both guys on here. It was cool to hear.
Yeah, I mean, having two different perspectives. Having Will that won, and then having another perspective, definitely, because I was doing something a little bit different than the winner. I mean, as a consumer myself, I would like to see that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I think it's cool because you guys were both out there, the same practice days, the same tournament days,
but doing two totally different things.
Yeah,
and both
still
in
being
the mix, right?
Still both right there at the top. So it's pretty cool.
For the technical aspect, like, I'm just glad it worked, because we've tried this before, and the delay was almost unbearable.
Yeah, I think the technology is better.
Yeah, it went perfect tonight. So
So anyway, anything else, Brock?
Just want to thank you guys for having me on, and congratulations, Will, for taking the win. And same thing as well. I'd like to thank everybody that supported me to get me here where I am, and I'm looking forward to finishing out the rest of the season.
Heck yeah.
Sounds good.
We're looking forward to watching it too. I'm ready for the next Derby. Like I said, like I was talking to Al, I think it's like all of a sudden there's this big flood of live bass tournament footage, and you get all juiced up on it, and then there's like this little void right now. It's
Right.
getting ready to start back up again, but I'm ready to keep it rolling, man.
This weekend's open
Yeah.
on Wichita, right?
Right.
So
Yeah, it won't be too long. It's that season.
Yep.
So all right. Well, that's it, guys. Thanks again. Thanks to everybody that hung out. Go check out the social medias. Go check out Will. I did leave links to all your guys' stuff in the comment section. So go over there, give them a like, give them a follow. Looking forward, Brock, to seeing the actual tournament video. Do you have any idea when that's going to be dropped?
Thursday or Friday this week.
Okay.
sweet.
Cool. Yeah. So everybody go check that out and support the companies and the products that support us. And we do this every Tuesday night at 8:00 Central Time. So love to see you guys back here next week. And that's all we got for you.
See you guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank y'all.